All right, no fanfare, no music yet, but good afternoon. This is the Front Porch Political Talk with I'm Hatton Humphrey.
I'm Ken Johnston.
Glad to be back. This whole thing is interesting, and we have to start off with the mascot for today's show. He may make a couple of appearances. I don't know, but let's go ahead and bring in the representative of today's show. It's the Beaver Moon. The Beaver Moon is the full moon in November. Yeah, I had to Google it, but it is it's apparently some Native American cultures refer to the full moon in the month of November as the Beaver Moon because they are more active because it is darker outside for longer. For this full moon, but it also happened to be a very we have
an eclipse.
Yeah, a lunar eclipse, a massive lunar eclipse apparently, and there were some really amazing pictures that came from this, and we'll just flip through these real quick. As a just some great positioning. These are called force perspective shots.
Yes.
And they are amazing when they line up just right. And things like that one.
Yeah, that's cool.
So just
go back to that one.
This one?
Nope. The statue with the scroll in his hand.
Oh yeah. That is George Washington atop Baltimore's Washington Monument.
It looks like, hey, I didn't know the founding fathers had flashlights. This is crazy.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's on the internet. It must be true.
It must be true.
That's a good one. Stadium lighting.
That's the F1 Grand Prix in Qatar. Of course. Uh-oh.
That's the bauble.
So, then a little bit of a halo.
Now the boys are home.
Yep. So anyway, we just had to start off with this and some good fun shots and a little bit of fun because the stuff we're going to talk about today is not necessarily the funnest stuff in the world. So we talked a little bit last week about the Kyle Rittenhouse case and how let me zoom this screen in a little bit. How they were gearing up for protests. And honestly, Ken, I expected protests. I expected more than we got.
I did too.
I kind of felt like we dodged a bullet, but you used a phrase earlier when we were talking about prepping for the show, and this kind of is a good point on that. What was the phrase you used?
The left having permission to behave badly.
Mm-hmm.
I see the boys are home.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
We found these.
Stop.
They're huge.
They are. Okay, don't go downstairs, okay?
Well, looks like we've got another commentator in training.
Yeah, we do. He's already started streaming on Twitch.
Oh, that's awesome. So anyway, yeah, you're right. The left being given permission to behave badly, and it's after the last 2 years, really, it's this started pre-COVID.
Yeah.
There are groups of individuals that just feel that they have full permission with anything to act up. if you will. There's no there's no rhyme or reason other than they find something to complain about and take to the streets I get to do air quotes now, peaceful protests that then involve, I don't know, setting car dealerships on fire.
Yeah.
Or destroying businesses. And those businesses can be small, large, doesn't matter.
Right. Well, here's where it gets a little interesting. With oh no, I can't remember the gentleman's first name. What started in Minneapolis with Mr. Floyd?
George Floyd.
With George. Mr. Floyd. I made a hard line, and if the people of Minneapolis wanted to take it out on the cops and wanted to throw stones at cop cars and police headquarters, stuff like that, I could kind of understand. It's not right, but at least we know where your anger's pointed at.
Right.
But to then start breaking into buildings and other businesses and just looting, it's just bad behavior. You're not doing anything but tearing down your own neighborhood. I don't understand that.
Well, and as has been evidenced in many of these riots, maybe not even your own neighborhood.
Well, I have a theory on that too.
Mm-hmm.
You bring up a great point. Would you necessarily go after your own neighborhood? That street corner, that park that you've played in since you were 5? No. So you put people on buses, you bus people in because they have no physical or emotional attachment to the area, and let them do it.
Right. But that then assumes that you have the money to pay for busing or transportation to bring somebody in from another location. And you also have the organizational structure in place to collect said people that are willing to go to another location and cause chaos and break things and possibly hurt people.
Yes.
That is a very nefarious concept.
It is.
That is not a, that is, they talk about, some groups are, some individuals, our former president was a community organizer. Is that what they're organizing?
Yeah.
And
let me be fair. The police do the same thing.
The what?
The police departments are doing the same thing and have been for a long time.
Yeah. Wait. I'm going to stop you. Well, go ahead.
It used to be that the police officers in your local community were generally from somewhere near your local community.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a Pasco County resident to be a Pasco County sheriff anymore. You don't have to be a Hillsborough County resident to be a Hillsborough County sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.
Well, but that's apples and oranges. For a sheriff, for an officer of the law, for anything. I mean, think even armed or unarmed security. That is a paid occupational decision and position.
I agree.
That has a functional budget and a role in the community organization as a whole.
I know times have changed, but let me point out what I'm getting at. Back when you and I were kids, at least in most of the deputies that were in my neighborhood were from somewhere around Pasco County. They had attachments. They had they knew the kids that were in their neighborhoods.
Well, it used to be that to teach in a school district, you had to live in the school district. That's no longer required. I mean, manpower doesn't support that concept well.
But
my point is less, taking an organization and the police or a sheriff or something like that. We're talking about organizing people that are coming in with the sole reason to protest.
I agree.
And yes, the Constitution provides for peaceful assembly, and redress of government actions.
Absolutely.
But when we talk about, go ahead.
This is where the similarities come into play. If you've got a cop who's even if it's just one of his subdivisions, okay, whatever, their parents. If you have these relationships with these families in this community, were you more likely to take them home to mom and dad, let mom and dad deal with them, or just take them to jail and they can call mom and dad later?
Yeah, but then we run into this scenario because this article wasn't riot declared in Kenosha.
It's Portland. I know. Well,
this is riot declared in Portland.
Yeah, but the people, the Antifa and BLM out in Portland, somebody sneezes wrong and they're going to riot.
Well, that's true as well.
No, they don't. They're just looking for an excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is. And
yeah, but what was interesting is as I was reading through this, the police chief told the outlet earlier in the night that it was reasonable to expect there will be some type of reaction to the verdict. But then the article goes on to talk about police retreating as protesters advance toward them. The police don't want to get hurt.
No.
No.
And I'll be honest with you, and I don't blame them.
No.
Portland, they've got no support.
No. I'm surprised there is still a police organization in Portland. Truth be told.
You're not kidding.
But this whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing, it really, this is what is frustrating me. I was listening to Mark Davis, and Mark Davis was saying, he was saying that when the Kyle Rittenhouse decision is made, if the jurors do what they should do and call not guilty on all of these because it was self-defense from every bit of evidence, even the DA brought charges based on politics, not based on evidence.
Right.
But black people are going to protest. And a black man called in and said, "Mark, why are you making this about race?" And Mark said, "I'm not. People have already said there is going to be backlash on this if he's found not guilty." Right. And this is from Politico. It's got its bent, but an opinion piece here, white animus against black grievance. Okay. I've never said that I will understand the things that a black person goes through.
Right.
But there are certain things that don't require a translation of pigmentation. And this is one of them. It was a trumped up charge made for political expediency, and the jury did what it was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. It took 4 days looking at the evidence. It reviewed both the video that the prosecution brought in at the last minute, didn't submit to evidence in the quality and format that they submitted at the closing arguments. Did you hear about that?
I heard something about it.
So there was a video originally submitted to evidence was this, I don't know if it was drone footage or something, but it kind of, it didn't negate the self-defense charge, but it really helped bolster the prosecution's case. But the version that they submitted to the defense as the presentation of evidence, which the Constitution requires, which law requires, if you are being charged with a crime, your defense team must receive every bit of evidence that is going to be used against you.
Yes.
The version of the video that they sent the defense team was a much lower quality, much more grainy video than what was played at closing arguments.
Right.
And so even as they were deliberating, the defense team said, wait a minute. This wasn't submitted as evidence. We're calling for a mistrial.
Yeah.
So that was the reason that the judge, you may have seen, was talking about mistrial, potential mistrial items. But they didn't do that.
Go downstairs. Now, go downstairs.
It's okay.
Go down. Hang on, Hat. Go downstairs now. I'm done. Go wash downstairs.
Can you get my...
We'll bring Ken back in a minute. Okay.
Joys of recording live.
Oh yeah. I pulled you out for some of that.
Thank you.
But the whole concept of you don't agree with the verdict, so all of a sudden now what bugs me is is the opinion that this was not just Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 people. He shot 3 white guys.
Yeah.
Not just did he shoot 3 white guys. One of them wasn't one of them a convicted sex offender? I don't know. Yeah, I know that none of the 3 of them were really good guys. They weren't Boy Scouts, we'll put it that way.
Right.
But yes, they were causing chaos and destruction at a Black Lives Matter rally. Same Black Lives Matter rally that had set a car dealership on fire.
Yeah, at least 1, maybe 2.
Yeah. And it had some other issues as well that were less than, peaceful protests. Yet this became an issue of white supremacy.
I don't.
And it's almost like the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say there is not racism in America, because there are still areas and pockets and situations where there is racism in America.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to say that there aren't twisted individuals and there aren't organizations that are, that are going to, yell, go back where you came from, or
that happened. Did you hear about what happened last night at the UFC event?
No, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Well,
I'm not going to say that there aren't white supremacist groups.
It was just taking an American fighter against a Chinese fighter. The American fighter wins, and he said, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something. He goes, and then I had to send him back to China where he's from, because I had to send him back home to China where he's from. Now he got alone. Yeah.
Oh.
If he just stopped with, I had to send him home. Did you get it? I beat him. I sent him home with a loss. Okay. But no. I don't think he meant it to be racist. No, it sure came across wrong.
But that's the challenge. I mean, there are times when people will make stupid statements, and
Yeah. And after you've been hitting the head for the last 15 minutes, it's kind of it's a forgivable offense.
But when you see white supremacy everywhere, and when you claim racism everywhere, then there is white supremacy nowhere, and there's racism nowhere.
Right.
Because people become numb to it.
Yes.
And it's the same. There are other parallels that could be drawn, but the boy who cried wolf, or the group who cried wolf, really is where I see that link, between these. And the problem is that it's not even, if there's the impression of of racism, or the imagery of attacking a group, then they scream it, and it's just not there.
Right.
Kyle Rittenhouse did not go to this to shoot black people.
No.
I think you said it in the last week's show. He went there specifically to protect, however misguided a 17-year-old going somewhere with a med pack is.
Right.
He went there thinking he was going to help people or help businesses. And, he
hung out in Kenosha. He had a lot of friends there.
So I was reading his mom and grandmother lived in Illinois.
Right.
His dad and his grandparents and his work and his friends were all in Kenosha.
Right.
The gun charge was completely made up. Here's an assistant DA that doesn't know his own state's gun laws.
Yeah, that's a problem.
There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems. The fact that he dared to bring up that Kyle hadn't said anything. That's the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Right.
I thought
the judge was going to blow a gasket at that one.
Oh, he did. So,
well,
go ahead.
That there was a theory that the prosecution had blown that case so bad they were going to screw it up even worse, hoping that the judge would throw it out so that they didn't take the L. Then they could go on and say, "Well, we did all we could," and the judge threw it out because of procedural stuff. It really wasn't our fault.
Right.
And then they don't have to.
And that didn't work.
Well,
that did not work at all. So anyway, there's some other news going on. We're not gonna talk about Biden this week. The fact that we had President Kamala Harris for the length of a colonoscopy.
Yeah, about 30 minutes.
Yeah. Some people were.
Hang on. We do need to mention that.
Yes.
She is the first woman and the first woman of color to hold the powers of the presidency, even if it was only for a short period of time.
Yeah.
We do need to acknowledge that.
Yes.
And then we also need to acknowledge that if President Biden kicks the bucket, we're going to have a woman that couldn't primary her own state as a president. But that's another conversation for another time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Somebody said, "What's Joe Biden's life expectancy?" Well, hopefully at least the next 3 years.
Yeah. Except for Biden.
Oh, so speaking of women who took a man's job, or let me rephrase that: women who took over for a man.
Okay.
Let's put that better.
I think that your former governor up there pretty much shot himself in the foot.
Oh, he did that on a regular basis, and it wasn't until a black female DA or no investigator general went after him that that they came up with enough actionable stuff. The report, and I'm not going to play the video, but the report kind of put into verification and real words the things that I knew already, the things that most New Yorkers knew already. Andrew Cuomo messed things up so spectacularly and tried to paint it like he was the good guy. This 45-page report talks about, some of it is still secret, or no, apparently the report is still secret. Talks about the fact that the numbers were wrong. Cuomo actually, the New York State Health Department, and by proxy then Cuomo, forced nursing homes to take COVID positive patients into their residence. Now, the obvious question is where are they going to go otherwise? Well, there was a shortage of hospital beds in some locations.
Yeah.
But where those locations were, there were emergency facilities that were erected
The Javits
and never used. What's that?
The Javits Center.
Yeah, the Javits Center.
A ship.
The hospital ship. The Mercy. They didn't even get used. They didn't even use the hospital ships.
Why? Because it would have made Trump look good.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason why those things weren't used on both coasts. I mean, it's how many beds are on the Comfort and the Mercy?
I don't even know.
I want to say 180, but it's a number from the back of my head. I could be wrong, but
yeah.
I mean, they were only going to take COVID patients.
Right. And they were geared up. They were prepped up. They had everything they needed. Oh,
no.
Let me see. No, the USNS Comfort has 1,000 patient beds.
Wow.
Yeah. And apparently all of this,
that's what those boats are for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently the reason that this investigation and this report are now coming out is because I guess Cuomo's trying to earn a buck by writing a book.
Yeah.
Gonna
need the money for his attorney fees.
or other things. But yeah, so and he did resign just in time to make sure that he didn't get really hurt.
Yeah.
From a legal standpoint. But yeah, there's all kinds of things still coming out about what happened during the Cuomo administration. And there will be for a while.
Oh yeah.
Because hindsight is 20/20, and since the person being investigated or the person being reported on can no longer bring the weight of the state government to bear against somebody, that kind of makes it a little easier to look at things. So do we want to talk about COVID this week?
I do. Okay. I want to talk about what's going on in Africa.
Okay.
You brought it up.
Yeah.
You brought the article up. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
COVID, a year and a half, 2 years later, has apparently not affected Africa as bad as they thought it would.
Which is surprising.
It is surprising. I had a theory.
Okay.
You hear a lot about how this pandemic hit Black neighborhoods really hard, especially in the inner cities.
Mm-hmm.
It just hit Black neighborhoods in inner cities. It hit all neighborhoods in inner cities because you're living on top of each other. You're living in that close quarters. You can't sneeze without sneezing on 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And of course, it hits the poor in all communities because they don't go out and get the medical treatment they need.
Right.
Well, you start talking about poor people in inner cities, everybody assumes you're talking about Black people. I mean, it gets rather annoying.
People of color. Yeah.
People are
Black, Hispanic.
Yeah. And finally, I got some of my friends in Florida are very liberal. I get sick and tired of hearing about it. And I finally threw out there, only because I was done with the argument. It's hitting Black people in the inner cities because we're dealing with a breathing problem. We're dealing with a breathing problem, which is part of the problem. Like, well, yeah, what? I said, but doesn't 10% of the population of the United States of the African Americans have sickle cell? Like, well, yeah. So if you can't breathe and your red blood cells are already having problems transporting oxygen throughout the body, could that be why it's hitting the African American communities harder than everybody else? Well, yeah. End of the argument. Okay. Logic?
Yeah.
No data. Logical statement. No data. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you look at what's going on in Africa. Ken's logic was incorrect. It's not even hitting the cities nearly as hard in Africa as it's hitting them here. The big population centers. I mean, it's still there. They're still having issues, but it's like us and the flu here. So what are they doing different, Hat?
Well, so I don't know. I have some theories of my own, and they have to do with compression of individuals, as well as the amount of time spent, as in people living on top of each other. Population density, but also the amount of time that individuals spend in their houses around each other. Because think about it, when in America we go to buy something, or when we go with our daily lives, right? We go out, we work at a building, we stop, get gas, stop and get our groceries, and come home. And those groceries will last us for a few days. We don't go out in the evening, especially not when everybody's stuck at home because of a lockdown or whatever. So we've got people that are living in dense populated areas that aren't going anywhere. That becomes a breeding ground.
Right.
If memory serves, and I will absolutely say this is anecdotal memory evidence. If I remember correctly, most populations, even in urban centers in Africa and in some Asian, they stock their groceries, they stock their kitchens on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
So they're not constantly in their houses. They're there to sleep and eat and do other things, but they're not spending 3, 4, 5 hours in the evening all in the same general concentrated area.
Right. And even when
The-
they go to the market, a lot of the markets are outdoors.
Yeah, they're all open air. The other thing to think about is the immune system of different countries is going to be different based on what their based on their exposure to other pathogens. I mean, if you've got an open air market, more than likely there's going to be germs and other things on their foods that their bodies are used to.
Well, yeah, and let's not forget.
I was talking to.
Go ahead.
I was talking to someone that I work with in India, and he goes, "You have to understand, there are, based on how we live, we get 3 or 4, epidemic a year."
Yeah.
Or 3 or 4 major diseases come through a year, and we just kind of live through it.
Yeah. Well,
because we're used to it.
And let's not forget, the COVID virus isn't new. It's a cold virus. It's related to the common cold.
Right.
If you had any of the bleach sprays from like 2019, it says kills the coronavirus. It includes the novel whatever it was.
Yeah.
So this virus has been around for a long time.
It's just virus. This variant. It's just that this variant is, or this subset of variants, because we got multiple of this. Are they hit with an impact and a negative impact, of a sledgehammer, and they hit fast and they scared governments.
Yes,
that's really it. And the fact that Africa is seeing the COVID-19 hit the way that Europe is, or the way that North America, it's a different culture. It's a different. They have, their bodies are used to different things.
Yeah.
So
here's what I want to know. This is just. I would be interested to see what it was like in Egypt. It's a pretty populated area. South Africa, and then compare that to everything in between. I would be interested to see what the differences in those numbers are.
Well, give me a minute and let me see what I can pull up. Hold on just a second. I'm not going to share the screen while I'm doing this.
That's crazy.
What's that?
It's craziness. It's like,
yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting map. Let me turn the screen share back on here. So if we look, US 47.5 million cases with a 7-day rolling average of 92. Egypt had a total of 350,000 with an average 7-day rolling of 972. South Africa, 2.9 million with an average rolling case of 500. So even there, I mean, we're still. But yeah, when you get into like Sudan, 66 cases, 7 days, 0 cases, and
it's fascinating.
This is pretty interesting. Now, what is sad to say is that some of these are because we don't have any numbers. Like China, I promise you, China had 27,000 cases.
Yeah. They probably had 127,000 cases in Wuhan.
Yeah.
But notice the numbers. What's different about South Africa versus Egypt and everything in between?
It's a more modern civilization.
It's also whiter.
It is.
For, calling it what it is.
Yeah.
Morocco, that was interesting. Some bigger numbers.
Yeah.
Bigger city. But yeah, I'm fascinated in the study of Africa and this virus. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah. Yeah, but so the question is why is the why are the numbers in something like like a Tunisia 716,000. Again, part of this is we have to know whether or not we can trust the numbers that are coming from these countries.
Yeah.
The other thing is that in the U.S., I know, and especially in New York State, some of these death numbers were if somebody could have had COVID when they died.
Well, we had in Florida, we had a guy that had tested positive for COVID. His death certificate listed that died by COVID, but they were picking up his helmet, which contained his head from underneath the semi that he ran into the back of.
Yeah.
It wasn't the decapitation that killed him. It was the COVID.
It was the COVID. Yeah. And so that's, again, that's, let's see. This one is, let's see, Reuters has this one. And this is the question, because we have different data sources, we have different numbers. Where's the map? Yeah, I mean, this is still, this is still very, very low numbers. When we look at things, this doesn't give a map, unfortunately. It just shows stacked graphs, and these are the scariest things in the world to look at.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah, and you mentioned Wuhan and China and that there is still a call from the UN. Apparently, Shangzhan. Hopefully, I didn't mispronounce that too poorly. Was a journalist in China that had questioned the authorities' handling of the outbreaks in Wuhan.
I think she's an attorney, and they listed her as a citizen journalist. So.
She's a former lawyer. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. She was sentenced in December to 4 years in jail for, quote, picking quarrels and provoking trouble.
Yes. How quaint.
How quaint. Just put her in the stocks.
Exactly.
Oh. So anyway, I guess she's on a food or on a hunger strike, and is also ill. No, she was on a hunger strike, and Her life was at serious risk from the hunger strike. So we'll keep an eye on that one.
Yep.
So
Time.
fun times. You know, we just sometimes we just have to make sure that that we here. Let's raise everybody's. Let's make everybody laugh again.
There he is.
Here he is.
Hey,
So,
what was that old Spartan curse? May you live in interesting times.
it was Chinese curse.
Okay.
Ancient Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times.
I remember it from the movie 300 because he told that guy at the end, "May you live a long life."
I
remember what you did here, traitor.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I guess we'll do this again next week.
Promise?
I promise.
I'll try and rein in the teenagers a little bit better.
That's all right. I have a feeling that unless the sports team has improved their standing, I may have a wife to console. So
I got to do something else. I've watched football, so I didn't watch. We didn't have cable for a long time, so I didn't watch a lot of sports. And then the last couple of Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays, I've been watching a lot of football. So I'm not going to watch football today. I'm trying to get some stuff done around the house because I'm feeling better.
Well, that's good.
So I'm got a couple podcasts that I need to get caught up on. So I'm going to go, once we're done here, I'm going to go back to that, get some dishes done. So I have garlic chicken for dinner. So
nice.
That's already
nice.
What about you? What else you got going on today? Consoling the wife
and getting ready for work tomorrow. And starting to watch the articles for next week's show, where we will invite folks to join us again. And since we won't have Kyle Rittenhouse to talk about, hopefully, there will definitely be different words in a different order. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Have a great day.